G'day guys, how you going? Hope you're well on this unbelievable Easter Monday, public holiday. This weather in Melbourne just keeps getting better and better and better. This is like just glorious at the moment. Yeah, that's the iconic Werribee River Band. Why am I even sharing that with you? I've shared some Werribee River Band stuff in the past. You all know that I love my music. The reason why is because on Friday I was at a wedding in Collingwood, and it wasn't your normal wedding. It wasn't the classical church or garden ceremony into a tacky reception centre somewhere. This was easily the best wedding I've ever been to. One of my really good mates who I went to growing up with, basically in Werribee, went to school with him. He got married in a pub called the Gem in Collingwood, and they put on 4 unbelievably good bands, like Melbourne acts. First one started at 3 o'clock. It was like a mini music festival. First one started at like 3 o'clock, and then they had their little ceremony inside the pub at 4. Then another band came on at 5. And then another band came on at 7, and another band came on at 9. And it was like, these were just unbelievably good Melbourne bands. And it was like such a good day. And I'm still kind of paying for it now. And Smitty, who got married, Andrew, yeah, we used to be in a band together. The iconic Werribee River Band. No, we didn't get up. We didn't get up and play. I was in no state to be doing that. In fact, Saturday was even a bit of a blur as I eventually got home on Saturday and sat down and finally watched the replay of our huge win against North Melbourne. Just before the second band came on, I reckon they came on at about 5:30. The drummer from the band, they're called Comets. Not the Comets. They're a 6-piece instrumental sort of psych band. And brilliant, like fantastic band. Like they're one of the best bands in Melbourne at the moment. They've got a couple of albums out. Check them out. But the drummer sort of spotted me. They were setting up, and I was sort of sitting to the side. By this stage of the, we've been drinking since, I don't know, like 1:30. I think I had my first pot. So I was well and truly on my way by this stage. I was okay. Like I was looking forward to this band coming on and playing, but the drummer came up to me, and I hope he's watching the show. I'm sure he is, because he said he watched My Blue Heaven. He said, "You Bucky from My Blue Heaven?" I said, "Yeah, mate." And he said, "Unbelievable." And he took a selfie, and I said, "I'm sending this to my mates now." So superb drummer, great band, great day. So absolutely brilliant day, and topped off really with a great performance by our football team, and I'll get to that shortly. But I might sort of start off in a bit of an editorial, guys. I did watch the St Kilda Worcester Bulldogs game last night. In fact, I think I may have even fell asleep on the couch about halfway through the third quarter and woke up at the end of the game. But not for one second throughout that game was I thinking about TDK and, the reports that, he may be off to St Kilda. It just didn't occur to me to even think about it, but fuck, we've got some petulant supporters who never learn, and maybe it's just a byproduct of how shit we've been for such a long time and how probably insecure we are about our football club. But I can't believe how childish a large section of our supporter base is in regards to this TDK situation. And I've got no idea what he's going to do. And who knows? Who knows? There could be a multiple of reasons. Obviously, money will be a big contributing factor, you would have thought, but supporters last night, we just watched, that would have been watching that game, and the response on social media today, as I sort of checked through the responses by Carlton supporters based on that game was, oh, fuck, why would you want to go to St Kilda? It's all about the money. It's all about the money. Like, oh, fuck that tragic football club. There's no other reason why you want to go to St Kilda. It's just because of the money. They're not a sexy football club. They're not this. They're not that. Like, and this wasn't just like, this was a massive, like, a lot of supporters were sort of on that bandwagon of just putting St Kilda down, you know, like, and it just, oh, look, go for it. Like, fucking go for it all you want. Like, obviously you love your footy club and maybe a bit of its banter, but what the fuck have we done? Like, what the fuck has our football club done other than beating up on two of the worst football teams possible? We've just happened to play probably at the perfect time. And that's not to take away how probably well we played against North Melbourne, but for our supporters to hang shit on St Kilda, and this is a club that beat Geelong, mind you, we're going to face Geelong this week, and I've already said that I'm wanting to benchmark us on the Geelongs, you know, on the Collingwoods, on the Brisbane Lions, Adelaide, GWS, whatever that may be. That's the teams we should be benchmarking ourselves against. Not necessarily not the West Coast Eagles and North Melbourne, but our supporters just to turn around and watch that game and sit there probably fucking hoping that Western Bulldogs would do a number on St Kilda just so they could get on their bandwagon and say the only reason why T2K would be going to St Kilda is for the money. Well, fucking hell, we're just pull your head in, man. Like, you got fucking no idea what his reasonings are. Like, you got no idea. Like, and I got no idea. But fuck, to think that the only reason he would want to go to a football club is just on money and want that to be your narrative and push that narrative and hope St Kilda is so shit so that you can have that point of view is pretty fucking tragic, considering really what have we done? Like, what the fuck have we done to deserve or to even have that arrogance from a supporter base, that arrogance that, fuck, we've done something? Like, it's actually fucking really embarrassing. It's cringeworthy. But anyway, I'm going to move on. That was an editorial. It was a bit of a rant. You can have two sides of this. You can have the fact that North Melbourne were just so pox. And you only have to listen to their poor supporters, like, just sitting through that, being there at the game and watching that unfold. And by all reports, my mum and my boys went to the game and they said it felt like there was a lot more North Melbourne supporters there, and it was their home game, mind you, than Carlton supporters. But to see them sort of watch that unfold and how uncompetitive they were, particularly after halftime. Like, we've been through that. We've been through those periods and kind of thank God that is over for us. But to be so uncompetitive, and just statistically it was sort of similar, probably not as bad that it was last week with the West Coast Eagles, but we just sort of dominated every aspect of the game. And you can have that, you can look at it and go, the opposition was so poor, like so poor. But on the other side, you can go, well, we actually did a lot right. And maybe the way we played caused them really to, at the end, particularly after halftime when we got on top, they did drop their bundle. They threw out the white flag because they couldn't really handle the pressure. And I think that's the most pleasing thing, the pressure that we were able to apply to them pretty much throughout the whole game. And that's been something which, for the most part, has been consistent throughout the year. Yeah, there's been times where it's dropped off slightly in games, particularly in those first four games. But the pressure, particularly early in the games, the players have come to every game this year with, I suppose, the right mindset early in the game. And maybe we can put to bed. Maybe we can put to bed. This has got nothing to do with the opposition. That fitness isn't a concern. Okay, to be able to overrun two teams, regardless of how poor they are, and really be looking like that you're running on top of the ground, and look like you play an extra quarter, suggests that the team isn't unfit. So maybe we could at least put that to bed. But it was a domination, like 65. I spoke about in the preview that this game, really, we will get so many opportunities, and if we can restrict them, and we restricted them to their second lowest inside 50 count for the year. They had 37 against the Swans at Marvel a few weeks back. We kept them to 39. We had 64 ourselves, which is that's a big discrepancy in a game of football. Absolutely annihilated them out of the middle of the ground. And that, look, I think the TDK and Christian Cherry tussle was a great one, a really good one, great one to watch. Really, yeah. I think TDK's work in the middle of the ground was exceptional. His ability to give first use at that centre bounce. The rest around the ground, you probably nearly give the points to Cherry, but the domination in the middle to get that territory was on the back of some of the great work that TDK was able to do in the middle of the ground. Scoring shots, like 33 scoring shots to 16. The tackling, like we were talking at the start of the year that our tackling, although the energy was okay and the effort was there in those early rounds, we just couldn't lay a tackle. So 83 to 56 tackles, 10 players had 4 or more tackles. 10. That's nearly half of your team have had 4 or more tackles. And the inside 50 tackles, it's just gone through the roof over the last couple of weeks. We've had 23 to 8. And that's an amazing stat. 9 goals in the last quarter, 15 goals after half time, and 12 separate goal kickers, and not a reliance on the 2 big key forwards, which we didn't have. Because in the past against North Melbourne, it's really been the Charlie and Harry show, and I went through those stats in my preview. The amount of times that they've kicked big bags, to be able to come up with 12 separate goal kickers and not have Charlie be the one-man band. Like, he was so selfless, his willingness to bring others into the game. Yeah, but that's kind of where I'm going to sort of leave it, because the opposition was so poor. And we now look forward to seeing whether this, and obviously the confidence will be up. The confidence has to be up, particularly in some of the players that are playing really good football at the moment. But the thing is, the pressure, if that pressure is brought against any team, regardless of who they are, you're going to be in the contest. It's whether the other stuff is going to stack up against the Geelong, who we get to face this week. The outside game, the connection inside forward 50, because we're not going to have it. We're not going to have it all our own way like we have over the last couple of weeks. But that performance on the weekend, regardless of how fucking terrible North Melbourne were, all right, was really pleasing to see. To the continuation of Adam Chera and also George Hewitt in the middle of the ground. The move to Sam Walsh on the wing was, I didn't think he was as good as he was against the Eagles, but he's still rather effective. I think Cottrell's having a really solid start to the season, other than the injury he had. So that on the outside, with that work in the inside, not a huge reliance on Patrick Cripps in the middle of the ground. I loved seeing, and it's not the first time we've seen it this year, guys. I love seeing Jesse Motlop go into the middle. He does give us something a little bit different in there, and I think that can even stack up. Those little moves can even stack up against the better teams, because sometimes they become a little bit harder to prepare for, because opposition know what we generally go with in the middle, but then we throw Motlop in there, or even a Durden in there, or Elijah Hollins goes in there for a centre bounce, and suddenly we bat a little bit deeper in the middle, and it's a little bit less predictable, and it's a little bit harder to plan against. Dominating that territory battle certainly helped out our defence. Wiedering and Silvani was superb once again. Wiedering unlucky, and Silvani did a number on Darling. Didn't think we got a hell of a lot from our running defenders in Sard and Ollie Hollins. Thought they had relatively quiet days, but they were serviceable in a big win. Maybe they didn't have to do a hell of a lot. And that forward line, I spoke about the 12 separate goal kickers, but to see the energy over the last couple of weeks that Durden, particularly Corey Durden, I think the thing about Corey Durden is, and this is not necessarily going early on him, but if you watched his VFL game against Southport, it was his tackling. It was his tackling that was the real feature of his game. And I think given the battles he's had with his shoulders in particular, it's one area of the game that for him had probably disappeared because of his body. Because when he first started the football club as a youngster and he first got his opportunities, he was a battering ram. He was a fucking ball of energy, and it was one bloke that you could rely on with that defensive pressure. He's brought that energy with Will White, and there's still a long way to go with Will White and Corey Durden and Jesse Motlop, but it's a start. It's a start, because you need those smalls to be first and foremost hitting the scoreboard, but at the same time applying that pressure, and then to have, and I mentioned in the preview, the weapons. And the one I'm probably most pleased with, and yeah, you're probably going to say, and fair enough as well, he's kicked most of his goals after half time when it was probably a little bit easier, and North had really put the cue in the rack, and that was Zach Williams' 4 goals as well. Because at the other end of the ground, you had someone like Cam Zerha who did not fire a shot. We know North have in the past caused us some headaches, and I thought Paul Curtis had the potential to cause us some heartache in that game, particularly early. He certainly was on fire, but we didn't allow him to, because we just dominated. We dominated contested ball. We dominated the centre of the ground, and we locked that ball in our front half and made it really impossible for North to get any ascendancy at all in their front half. It must be torture being a forward at North at the moment. 39 inside 50s. That's just not enough. So I'm taking that. It's clear to me, and I've said this before, and I'll say it again. I don't think, and I even thought this when we weren't going bad at the start of the year, Ross certainly hasn't lost the players. He has not lost this group. And that's not what's happened over the last 2 weeks. But this last 2 weeks could have been disastrous. If Michael Voss, and I've heard this, if Michael Voss had lost the players, lost this group, and those games would have been closer. And those 2 games could have been disastrous. They could have been disastrous. No, they've come with a real fucking appetite, and you don't come with that appetite if the players are not responding to the coach. Can that stack up? I'm not thinking about that right now. Okay, I'm fascinated by what the next 4 or 5 weeks looks like. Are they essentially starting to trick the supporter base again? Don't know. I can't answer that right now. My gut feel is that there's still a fucking lot of work to be done with this group, just given how uncompetitive both those teams are. I'm talking West Coast Eagles and North Melbourne. It almost felt like we've copped them at the right time. Both of those teams we copped at the right time. But that the pressure that we applied was outstanding. And that pressure, okay, it doesn't take any talent at all to bring that. So you bring that against the top teams, okay, you're going to make life really tough for them, regardless of who they are and how skillful they are. So anyway, enjoy the next couple of days, guys, and I'll be back probably tomorrow with the votes. They're going to be interesting, the My Blue Heaven, the My Blue Hell medal votes. Yeah, I think there were a few players that were probably a little bit down, but certainly you can throw a lot of players into the top 5 players on the ground. Yeah, some absolutely outstanding individual performances. And to win against North Melbourne. Speak soon.